A memo recently issued by Attorney General Merrick Garland suggests there will not be a federal indictment before the November midterms of former President Trump, this pertaining to his conduct either leading up to or on January 6th. The Attorney General told DOJ officials and staff in May that extra steps are required before bringing charges against any major political figure in an election year. At a press conference today, our CBS News Chief National Affairs and Justice Correspondent Jeff Pegues asked the Attorney General about this.
And these mean no partisan considerations in prosecutorial and investigative work. It means treating like cases alike, regardless of whether the subject or target is a friend or a foe, or rich or poor, or Republican or Democrat.
We are entering a zone here where if there are charges brought against a former president related to January 6th, DOJ could be accused of playing politics. How is the department, how are you weighing that? Also, do you think that there is a constitutional question involved here about whether you charge a former president for actions allegedly taken during his term?
Look, no person is above the law in this country. Nothing stops us.
Even a former president?
I don't know how to, maybe I'll say that again. No person is above the law in this country. I can't say it any more clearly than that.
So this is obviously a very big topic, and there are probably few people in America better able to help us understand it than Laurence Tribe. Professor Tribe is Harvard University Professor of Constitutional Law Emeritus. Professor Tribe, it's always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. So I've heard various interpretations of this memo. One, oh no, the sky is falling, the Justice Department's not going to do anything. Another saying, no, hold on. This is standard process. Don't jump to conclusions. Help the audience understand it best you can.
I think it's very clear that the memo didn't add anything that we didn't already know. It was a memo dated May 25th of this year. I think people made a big deal out of it, but it was simply standard procedure. The Attorney General has to sign off personally before an investigation is begun of a major political figure in a political year. But number one, the investigation, I think, has already begun. Number two, I know Merrick Garland well. He was my student. It doesn't take him long to sign off on things. And number three, he made clear in talking to your excellent journalist today that nothing will stop him from indicting a former president, including President Trump, if the evidence warrants. And I think we're seeing the evidence clearly warrants it. So I'm really quite encouraged.
And Professor Tribe, to your point about it doesn't stop an investigation. So if one is already going on, there's nothing about this memo that puts the brakes on that process.
Nothing at all. And all the people, and I'm among them, who have expressed occasional impatience, forget that unlike Fannie Willis and the Georgia procedure, the federal procedure is locked down. It's conducted in a very secret way. All kinds of stuff is going on. I'm amazed to hear so many people say that the January 6th committee, which I think is doing a brilliant job, is ahead of the Justice Department. How do they know? For all they know, apart from Cassidy Hutchinson, who apparently was something of a surprise to the Department of Justice, the department knows everything the committee knows and more. They want the committee's transcripts. Of course they do, because they want to double check everything they've got. But right now, I think there is no reason to panic and every reason to think that the process is moving forward. I wish it would move even faster, but if wishes were horses, then, we could all ride.
Professor Tribe, what has been your sense, and what do you think is the historical takeaway from what we have observed from the January 6th committee thus far?
Well, I think the historical takeaway is that because never in our history have we had a president who was completely unwilling to take no for an answer when the people vote him out of office, and the Electoral College has voted and has said, you've lost, and all the people around him have said, you've lost, is basically said, I don't care what anyone says, I'm going to hold on to office no matter what. And the committee has shown us very clearly, step by step, and I think we'll show even more tomorrow night on live television, that this was a president who, even when he learned that the mob was armed, said, that's great, let's take down the magnetometers, have them march on the Capitol. they're not going after me. He made it clear that they were going after his vice president. They were going to interrupt the proceedings. They were going to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power for the first time in over 2 centuries. And the committee has made clear how extraordinary that was, how powerful. The evidence is that this president was not going to take no for an answer. We came awfully close to losing our democracy. And the committee is going to recommend changes in the law to make it harder for a coup to occur again.
Professor Tribe, you know that there is a spirited debate going on journalistically and legally about whether or not it is good for this country to see an indictment, even if there's evidence to support it, of a former president. Those who are cautious about that say that's banana republic stuff. We get into an era where even if there's legitimate evidence, it looks like it's all politics, and that will forever change America's relationship to a former president. Where do you come down on that?
Well, it seems to me it would look like politics if evidence of severe criminality, treachery, seditious conspiracy on the part of a former president ended up with no accountability. That would be a banana republic. But all of these metaphors about how it's a banana republic, how terrible it would be, sure, it would not be a good thing. There would be a lot of unrest. But think how terrible it would be if we establish the precedent going forward that a president can basically engage in a seditious conspiracy, foment a violent insurrection that results in at least 7 deaths, come awfully close to ending the transition of power, and then what? Nothing happens, a big nothing. That would be the worst possible outcome for the future of our democracy. I hope it doesn't end up that way.
And Professor, do you believe from an evidentiary point of view that burden has already been met, either through the January 6th committee hearings or what you imagine justice is pulling together?
Well, there are a few more dots to be connected. I'm not ready to say that the proof is immediately there beyond a reasonable doubt, but there is far stronger proof than in almost any prosecution I've seen. And until the jury speaks, we really won't know. But I do think the proof is there. I think with more evidence, a little more evidence, that I'm sure the Justice Department is in a better position through its subpoena power to collect than even the subpoena power of the committee, with a little more evidence that shows the agreement between Trump and Stone, Trump and Giuliani, Trump and any number of other figures to foment the violence, then it will all be there. But even now, the proof is there. For example, with respect to strong-arming Raffensperger to steal the votes of Georgia, that's already there. That's why I expect an indictment from Fani Willis in Fulton County, Georgia, even before an indictment from the Department of Justice.
Harvard's Laurence Tribe, we thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Garrett.